When I was reborn, it was at the very moment I fell into the freezing lake. But this time, unlike in my past life, Xiaoji didn't jump in to save me. As I cried for help, he simply gave me a cold, indifferent glance and walked away without even looking back. Right before I sank completely, I saw him push through the crowd and pull my half-sister into his arms. His trembling back was filled with the joy of getting something back he thought he had lost. At that moment, I realized Xiaoji had been reborn too. I came back to life, but the timing was terrible. It was exactly when I was falling into the icy water. In my previous life, Xiaoji had jumped in without hesitation to rescue me. He held me tightly, terrified that I would die. Because of that, Xiaoji resented my half-sister deeply. She had insisted on dragging me out to go ice skating, and that's how I ended up in the water. After I fell in, I was bedridden for 3 years. During those 3 years, my half-sister, racked with guilt, took care of me the entire time. But Xiaoji never forgave her. Every time he saw her, he would glare coldly and lash out, like he wanted to kill her on the spot to vent his hatred. Even though my family and Xiaoji took great care of me during those 3 years, my health never recovered. I was too weak and didn't make it in the end. After I died, my spirit didn't leave right away. It lingered in the human world. I saw that in the 2nd year after my death, my half-sister voluntarily entered the Xiao family household as a servant to atone for her sins. No matter how cruelly Xiaoji treated her, she never left. She took care of everything in his daily life with quiet devotion. 1 year later, Xiaoji went hunting and deliberately left her behind in a snow-covered forest for 2 hours. She was nearly frozen to death. Just as I was thinking he had gone too far, he suddenly came rushing back like a madman. He jumped off his horse, stumbled toward her, and wrapped her tightly in his arms. His eyes were bloodshot, brimming with tears, filled with remorse and the ecstasy of getting her back. That was when I understood. During all those years of torment, Xiaoji had fallen deeply in love with her. A freezing wind blew past, and Xiaoji wrapped her tightly in his cloak. Meanwhile, I dissolved into a puff of smoke, carried away by the wind, disappearing from the world completely. When I opened my eyes again, my body was still frozen to the bone. But this cold was different from the numb, deathly chill I'd felt before. I could feel it vividly. I was struggling, my mind foggy, but I understood clearly now. I had come back. Back to the moment when my half-sister dragged me ice skating, and I fell through the ice. I saw Xiaoji. Like everyone else standing on the riverbank, he just watched me struggle in the water with an indifferent expression. Then he gave me a cold glance and turned to leave. He walked away quickly, as if he were looking for something. Then I saw him push aside the onlookers and sweep my half-sister into his arms. His back was trembling. Even though I couldn't see his face, I knew he was excited. He was happy. I understood then. Xiaoji had been reborn too. In this life, he gave up on me and chose her. Just before I completely blacked out, I shouted to the people on shore, "I'll give 100 taels of silver to whoever saves me." When I woke up again, 3 days had passed. Just like in my past life, my mother was sitting by my bedside crying. Usually so concerned with her looks, she now had messy hair and a wrinkled robe. My heart ached. I called out to her in a hoarse voice, "Mother." My mother burst into tears of joy, hugging me while laughing and crying at the same time. My older brother returned with the doctor. The doctor said my body was extremely weak and had to be carefully nurtured, no more exposure to cold or exhaustion. I smiled and agreed. In this life, I needed to be stronger, more determined, and work harder to stay alive. Father came rushing back from the county office. His official hat was crooked on his head, and despite the bitter cold, he was drenched in sweat. "My Jiao Jiao is safe. That's all that matters." My father choked up. "Dear, tomorrow I'll go with you to fulfill our vow and offer a golden statue to the Bodhisattva." Mother nodded with a smile. I sighed. In my past life, after I died, Mother fell seriously ill. She was never truly happy again, and her health steadily declined. Father retired early, before the age of 40, and returned to our hometown. Yet he had once been greatly favored by the emperor and had a bright future ahead. After they left, my brother stayed alone in the capital. Though he worked diligently, he never rose in rank. A few years later, disheartened, he returned home too. "Father, use my money. I want to personally offer the golden statue to the Bodhisattva," I said with a smile. This time I was going to live. "All right. If it's Jiao Jiao's money, the Bodhisattva will feel your sincerity even more and bless you with health and a long life," my father said with a laugh. Sister Su Rong, my half-sister, entered the room. Her eyes were still wet with tears. She walked over to my bedside, knelt down, and kowtowed. "It's all my fault. You can hit me, scold me, whatever you want." Mother's face immediately darkened. "You still have the nerve to admit fault? I think you did it on purpose. You meant to kill Jiao Jiao." Mother raised her hand and slapped Su Rong across the face. Su Rong fell to the ground, then scrambled up, sobbing and apologizing. My mother hated Su Rong. More accurately, she hated her mother. My mother came from a military family. While not from nobility, her family held great influence in the Northwest. My father, on the other hand, came from a poor scholar's background. He was sponsored by my maternal grandfather to attend a private academy when he was just a teenager. He and my mother were childhood sweethearts. After they married, they had a loving relationship. One year, my father had to travel on official business. My mother was pregnant with me and couldn't accompany him, so she sent her most trusted maid, Cui Wan, to go in her place. But unexpectedly, Cui Wan drugged my father's wine. When my mother found out, she was 7 months pregnant with me. The shock brought on early labor, and I was born prematurely. By the time she recovered a little, Cui Wan, locked away in the back courtyard, was already pregnant with Su Rong. My mother was too kind-hearted to cast them out, so she allowed them to stay. But from then on, she never saw Cui Wan again. Whenever she saw Su Rong, she was cold and distant, never giving her a shred of kindness. "Someone come." My mother, still furious that I had nearly died, shouted toward the doorway. "Sell both of them, mother and daughter, immediately." My father had always felt guilty about that incident, so he didn't dare say a word now. But I knew, in my past life, my father eventually begged my mother to let them stay. She agreed, but the two of them had a huge fight over it. My father, depressed, got drunk and was cornered by Cui Wan on his way home. She dragged him into her room. If my mother hadn't arrived with people in time, I might have ended up with another half-brother. After that, my parents' relationship worsened. My mother didn't speak to him for a long time. "Mother." I stopped her in the middle of Su Rong's crying. "She didn't mean to. Please don't blame her." Su Rong froze. She looked up at me, eyes full of tears and confusion. My father, standing with his back to us, quietly let out a sigh of relief. "You're just too kind. Even now you're speaking up for them," my mother said, still angry. "But I wasn't being kind. It's because Su Rong now had the backing of Xiaoji, heir to the Marquis of Boyang. There's no way we could actually sell her. If this blew up, not only would we push father further away, we'd also offend Xiaoji. There are plenty of ways to get revenge and take Su Rong's life. In my previous life, I always believed Su Rong was innocent. Even though Xiaoji kept saying that Su Rong was the one who hurt me, I still defended her. It wasn't until I died and saw Su Rong become a servant in the Marquis' mansion that I caught a glimpse of her true nature. Once, I saw her holding my keepsake with a cold, ruthless expression on her face. That's when I realized I had been wrong about her. Her scheming, her patience, her methods, I, who was raised in a sheltered life, could never compare. She knew Xiaoji liked me, and no matter what trick she tried, he would never look at her. So she planned for me to fall into the ice hole. Because I was born prematurely and weak, falling into the ice hole in the bitter cold of winter meant even if I was lucky enough to be saved, I wouldn't live long. Sure enough, she had calculated everything, using me as a tool, advancing step by step, until she finally got what she wanted. Her intentions were so deep that even Xiaoji was unaware of them. This time, I didn't like before, agree to let Su Rong serve me. So during this half-month of recovery, she only came once. But it wasn't because she didn't want to act like a guilty sister. She was just too busy sneaking around with Xiaoji. 1 month later, while I was practicing horse dance, my wet nurse came to tell me she had seen Xiaoji secretly meeting with Su Rong. Oh, I replied distractedly, trying hard to keep my balance. Song Shiqing snorted. Don't move. Hold the stance for the time it takes to drink a cup of tea. Not a second less. I glared at him. Seriously? You really think you're my master or what? Song Shiqing was my uncle's adopted son. He grew up in the Northwest, but since I often visited there, we've always been close, like siblings. When he was 15, he followed my uncle to the army camp. This time, he got a 3-month leave just to come to the capital and see me, but I caught him and insisted he teach me martial arts to strengthen my body. So he started treating feather dusters like commands, barking orders at me every day, never letting me slack off even a little. Miss, Xiaoji clearly likes you, the wet nurse said angrily. She was puzzled. Xiaoji had always been close to me, so why was he suddenly getting close to Su Rong? Xiaoji is a grown man. He can like whoever he wants. Wet nurse, instead of worrying about that, why don't you think about what we'll eat tonight? I'm starving. Wet nurse got mad, but Song Shiqing laughed. Don't listen to her, wet nurse. Starve her a bit. Wet nurse giggled and happily walked away. So, you've been upset recently because Xiaoji has shifted his affections? Song Shiqing asked me. What upset? I'm not upset. You've been frowning all day. Please, I'm frowning because some people treat feather dusters like commands. It's frustrating. Song Shiqing grinned proudly and poked my forehead. Good student, keep practicing. Your master won't let you down. Song Shiqing. I couldn't take it anymore and toppled backward, but he caught me with one hand. Master Song. I lazily leaned on his arm. Can I rest for a bit? Just 1 hour, please. Song Shiqing's cheeks flushed slightly as he gave me a glare. Whining won't work. Master Song isn't buying it. Just as I was about to speak, I suddenly heard Su Rong call out, Sister, Cousin Song, what are you two doing? I let go of Song Shiqing's arm and turned around there. Standing behind us were Su Rong and Xiaoji, though I hadn't noticed when they got there. Practicing martial arts? Su Rong said innocently, looking at us. You two are really close, just like when you were kids. Xiaoji didn't say a word, but his face was dark and stormy, even gloomier than the overcast sky above. Song Shiqing glanced at Xiaoji and raised an eyebrow, whispering in my ear, Want me to beat him up a bit to help you vent? I gave him a sharp look. Don't cause trouble. If things get messy, I'm the one who'll lose face. People might think I'm jealous or petty. Song Shiqing smirked and shot Xiaoji a sidelong glance. Elder sister, Su Rong called me, and I suddenly remembered Xiaoji and Su Rong were still there. I asked, Did you need something? Su Rong glanced at Xiaoji, whose expression had darkened further, and awkwardly said, The air, and I came to check on you. Worried you might not be recovering well. Seems like we were overthinking it. You look more energetic than before. Thanks for your concern. I am indeed better. I waved her off and followed Song Shiqing away. Wait. Suddenly, Xiaoji, who had been silent, spoke up. He frowned as he looked at Song Shiqing. Her constitution is weak. Rest is the best cure. Having her train like this will only overburden her and worsen her condition. After he said that, both Song Shiqing and Su Rong looked at him in surprise. I lowered my head, eyes narrowed, and inwardly sneered. Was that guilt I sensed from Xiaoji? Actually, I wasn't angry. He chose Su Rong over me this lifetime. He had the right to choose. But his coldness, watching me wither as if I were already dead, that was what broke my heart. Xiaoshi, you really have too much free time, Song Shiqing sneered. First, I won't harm her. Second, how she manages her health isn't your business. Song Shiqing never held back his words, and after he finished, Xiaoji's expression grew even uglier. Xiaoji said, Jiao, if you don't listen to me, then at least listen to the doctors. You can't keep mistreating your body. I turned to look at him. I'm not mistreating my body, because the doctors said I'm doing very well. Xiaoji was stunned, looking at me as if shocked by my coldness toward him. His attitude made me want to laugh. Not wanting to stay there any longer, I pulled Song Shirqing away. Behind us, I heard Su Rong choking up. Brother Ji understands sister's illness better than I do. As her sister, I feel like such a failure. It's not your fault. Why blame yourself? Xiao Ji comforted Su Rong. She's an adult now. Whatever happens is her own responsibility. He patted Su Rong's head again. Weren't you going to take me to see the plum blossoms? Let's go. I rolled my eyes. How had I never noticed before how big a fake Su Rong could be and how frivolous Xiaoji really was? In my past life, though he and I cared for each other, he was always a proper gentleman, self-disciplined and respectful. Not to mention, on the day I fell into the water, he never hugged me like he did Su Rong in front of others, nor did he ever touch me carelessly in private. Xiaoji and Su Rong were truly in love, so much that they could lose control and ignore etiquette. I suddenly remembered that around this time in my past life, Song Shirqing also came back once and urged me to get up and move more, saying that lying down every day would ruin even a healthy person. But at that time, I lacked the willpower. Moving was too hard. Xiaoji opposed me moving too much and advised me to rest quietly according to the doctor's advice. So, I lay down without guilt. Because of this, Song Shirqing and Xiaoji fought. I defended Xiaoji and scolded Song Shirqing. Angry, he called me lazy and stupid and gave up on me. After that, until I died, I never saw Song Shirqing again. However, I heard news about him from my eldest brother. Cousin, I put down my teacup and frowned. After your leave ends, aren't you going to the Northwest Defense Camp under General Gua for training? Yes, why? Song Shirqing wiped his blade and glanced at me. Don't go to General Gua's camp. In my past life, he left my uncle's army camp to train under General Gua, but didn't respect Gua's discipline. He fought with General Gua and even wrote a memorial accusing him. I don't know the full details, but I remember he didn't come out on top. He was beaten with 80 military rods and lost his rank. I don't want to go either. That old fool Gua, Song Shirqing said with a serious face. Then don't go. Remember that. Song Shirqing promised me. Got it, I won't go. Then he left. The next day, I heard someone dumped a bucket of manure on Xiaoji. He managed to avoid most of it, but was still filthy and stank horribly. While practicing my punches, I watched Song Shirqing, hoping to get him to admit if he was behind it. But he was too clever to give anything away. I know I'm handsome, but you don't have to be so obsessed with me. I rolled my eyes. Practicing every day, I didn't lose weight but actually gained 2 pounds. My parents said I looked much healthier, and the doctors praised my recovery. One day, I was lazing in my eldest brother's room with Song Shirqing. They were both supervising me as I took my medicine when Xiaoji came uninvited. The atmosphere became awkward and I didn't want to stay long. I prepared to finish my medicine and leave. I frowned at the bitterness of the medicine when Song Shirqing chuckled. Your frown looks like an old lady's. I glared at him, then suddenly noticed a piece of preserved fruit in front of me. Xiaoji actually carried the preserved fruit I liked with him. Seeing I didn't take it, he pushed it closer and said, Forgot your preserved fruit again, didn't you? Luckily, I have some here. I frowned. Song Shirqing gave a warning look, as if the moment I took the candied fruit from Xiaoji, he would chop off my hand immediately. I glared back at him, then turned to Xiaoji and said, Thank you, young Lord Xiao, but I don't need candied fruit when I take my medicine. In my previous life, I always complained about the bitterness of the medicine and insisted on eating candied fruit, so every time Xiaoji came to see me, he would bring some along. Because I liked it, he even consulted the kitchen maid and personally made me a box of them. Each piece I ate then felt especially sweet. But this life, I no longer need candied fruit when taking medicine. Bitterness is a kind of flavor too, no need to deliberately avoid it. Like my mother said, life's full of all kinds of flavors. That's just how life is. Xiaoji looked utterly disappointed, clutching the candied fruit tightly in his palm. I suddenly lost interest and said I was going back to rest, then left the study. After walking a dozen steps, I heard footsteps behind me. Xiao, she called out. Jiao Jiao. Young Lord Xiao, I said coldly, our relationship isn't close enough for you to call me by my given name. It's more appropriate for you to address me as Miss Su. Xiaoji was momentarily stunned, seemingly wanting to explain something, but just as he was about to speak, Su Rong gracefully approached from the side. Brother Ji, did you come for that matter today? Su Rong looked up at Xiaoji, cheeks flushed, full of coyness. Xiaoji glanced at me deeply, then turned to Su Rong and said gently, Yes, I'm waiting for Master Su to return from the office. Su Rong smiled brightly. Brother Ji, you're really so kind. I was too annoyed to watch their lovey-dovey act and walked away quickly. That night, my mother and father argued. I hurried over to mediate, and when I entered the main courtyard, I saw Su Rong and her mother kneeling there. I ignored them and went straight inside. Just then, I heard my mother say, Su Junyi, you disgusted me once, and now you want to do it again? If you want Su Rong to be registered under my name, wait until I'm dead. As long as I live, don't even think about it. My father was flushed with anger. When he saw me, he let out a big sigh of relief and, rare as it was, looked at me with pleading eyes. Father, my eldest brother and cousin have returned. They said they have something to tell you, I said with a smile.
Oh, all right.
I'll go see them now. My father quickly left. I helped my mother sit down and whispered in her ear, Mother, please agree to father's wishes for now. I can't swallow this anger, my mother said furiously. The maid I grew up with, I treated her like a sister, gave her my all, but she stabbed me in the back. I'll never swallow this anger in my life. If she wants her daughter to be the legitimate heir and marry well, that depends on her fate. Mother, I whispered, I want you to agree for now, not to give her face, but to keep father steady. Leave the rest to me. I didn't want their relationship ruined because of that mother and daughter. As for Su Rong's fate, we don't need to take it ourselves. In this life, every step she takes leads her closer to death. My mother followed my advice. Soon, Su Rong and her mother became more active. Aunt Yao even called for embroiderer Nyo to come and sew clothes for her, picking colors she never dared to wear before. She's not worthy of those colors, puffed. The wet nurse spat. Enough, calm down, I said, pulling the wet nurse down to sit. Have you finished what I asked? As your servant, miss, rest assured I've done everything properly. A few days later, Lady Buang heard about Xiaoji's involvement with the illegitimate daughter of a mere third-rank official and flew into a rage, having Xiaoji tied up and brought back. Lady Buang is the Princess of Anyang, personally appointed by the current emperor, pampered and proud her whole life. In my previous life, she didn't even look down on me, her legitimate daughter, so how could she ever accept Su Rong this time? Back then, she agreed to my marriage with Xiaoji because I personally planted 16 pots of camellias she loved and gave them to her. After accepting the flowers and wanting to reconcile with Xiaoji, she used that as an excuse to back down and agreed to the marriage. This time, would Xiaoji have Su Rong learn to plant camellias like I did, or find some other way? The Boyang Marquis' mansion was shut tight and silent. Xiaoji hadn't left for 7 days straight, obviously under house arrest. Su Rong was anxious and kept asking people to find out news. 2 days later, before dawn, Xiaoji came to see Su Rong. After talking for an hour, he finally left. Are you sure it was a farewell? I asked the wet nurse. He even begged for an imperial edict. I saw him holding the emperor's golden token, she said. Cousin, I called Song Shiqing, urging him. You're leaving today. Immediately. We had originally planned to set out tomorrow. You predicted Xiaoji's move. He begged for an imperial edict to go to Jian County in the southwest. Song Shiqing asked. I nodded. I wasn't wrong. Xiaoji planned to earn military merit in the southwest, bypass Lady Boyang, and petition the emperor for marriage. In my previous life, a minor rebellion broke out in Jian County over limestone mining, catching the court off guard. Within 3 months, they occupied 3 prefectures and 12 districts. The news must have reached the capital late last night. The emperor nearly fainted in anger. To quell the rebellion, the court spent huge amounts of silver and manpower, taking a year and a half to crush the rebels. Since Xiaozhi was ordered to march, it'll take him about 3 days to muster the troops. If you hurry, you can arrive at least half a month earlier than him, I whispered. Song Shiqing packed his belongings. I asked him, but if someone asks why you happen to be in Jian County, what will you say? He should be in the capital, but suddenly appears there. If anyone wanted to harm him, they could use that against him. Oh, my great-grandma's grandma's third uncle is in Jian. Problem. Song Shiqing said casually. I laughed heartily and gave him a thumbs up. Visiting family caught a rebellion, stepping in to restore order. Perfectly reasonable. 3 days later, Xiaozhi mustered his troops and set off. My days went well, practicing boxing daily and getting stronger. Su Rong, however, grew thinner and thinner, with blisters on her lips. On the day my father was promoted and held a banquet, she applied 3 layers of powder, but still couldn't hide it. Before the new year, good news from the southwest kept coming. After the new year, the rebellion was quelled. On the military merit list sent back to the capital, Song Shiqing's name was prominently above Xiaozhi's. In March, Song Shiqing and Xiaozhi returned to the capital together. The emperor received them at the Golden Throne, praising them as talented youths and pillars of the nation. When the emperor asked what rewards they wanted, Xiaozhi spoke up first. I request your majesty grant me a marriage. Me too, Song Shiqing loudly echoed. The emperor laughed heartily, chatting with the grand eunuch. Youth is nothing without a little madness. Tell me, which 2 ladies are so lucky to win the hearts of these 2 ministers? But Xiaozhi didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned and asked Song Shiqing, Are you asking for a marriage too? Song Shiqing gave a sarcastic smile. Of course. Xiaozhi pressed further. Are you asking the emperor to grant marriage between you and Jiao Jiao? Of course. Song Shiqing. Xiaozhi's face was full of anger. How dare you? The servants came running to tell me that Song Shiqing and Xiaozhi were fighting outside the mansion gates. My first thought was that Song Shiqing must have started it. I said to myself. Though I'm disappointed in Xiaozhi, his temper has always been much better than Song Shiqing's. When I arrived at the gate, Su Rong was there too. Song Shiqing and Xiaozhi were in the middle of a fight, surrounded by a crowd watching eagerly. Since both were highly skilled fighters, their moves were lethal and spectacular. From time to time, someone even cheered. I felt an intense headache and shouted, Stop! Su Rong also cried out, Brother Ji, cousin, please stop fighting, quickly. Song Shiqing saw me, sheathed his blade, and walked over. Jiao Jiao, some people just deserve to be beaten. Don't get involved, he said. Are you hurt? I asked halfway through my sentence, when suddenly I saw Xiaozhi, who was about to withdraw his sword, suddenly thrust it towards Song Shiqing again. I was terrified and screamed, Watch out. Song Shiqing reacted immediately, twisting his body just in time to parry. The clash of sword and blade left both wounded. How are you? I helped Song Shiqing up and shouted at Xiaozhi. Are you crazy? He already put away his blade, didn't you see? Ignoring the wound on his shoulder, Xiaozhi strode forward, grabbed my hand that was helping Song Shiqing, and questioned fiercely. Jiao Jiao, you're actually protecting him? Do you know what he just did? Before I could answer, he shouted angrily. He actually petitioned the emperor to grant a marriage between you and him. Tell me, should he die or not? You're the one who should die. Song Shiqing raised his blade, but I blocked him and asked Xiaozhi, What business is it of yours? This is my matter. Xiaozhi looked stunned. Brother Ji. Su Rong's face turned pale as she came forward, trembling as she called, Brother Ji, are you hurt? Xiaozhi trembled, as if waking from a nightmare, and looked at Su Rong, as if suddenly remembering that this life, he had already given up on me and chosen her. His lips moved, but he said nothing. If anything happens to my cousin, I won't let you off. I warned Xiaozhi. then helped Song Shiqing back inside the mansion. The sword Xiaozhi was holding clattered loudly to the ground. Inside the room, I applied medicine to Song Shiqing's wounds. Luckily, they were only superficial scrapes. What exactly happened? Why did you two fight? I asked. They hadn't fought once during those months in the southwest. Today, at such an important moment returning to the capital with military honors, they actually fought. He's crazy, Song Shiqing said. He petitioned the emperor for marriage. I said I wanted it too, then he asked if I was going to marry you. I said yes, and he went mad. The emperor probably guessed we were petitioning for the same marriage, so he quickly gave us our rewards and sent us home. I felt dizzy with anger. He asked for a marriage decree, and you let him? Why did you even get involved? Song Shiqing smiled meaningfully. He mixed military success with trying to get the decree to marry Su Rong, right? A fickle man like that. Do you think I'd let him have his way? You should be grateful you didn't marry him. Someone like that isn't worth your love. When did I ever like him? I said, half laughing, half crying. He patted my shoulder. Good that you don't like him. As for our marriage, I'll definitely ask you first. Besides, we don't need an imperial decree. It will happen naturally. Who said anything about our marriage? Get your head straight, I snapped. He changed the subject. Why are you holding on to me? The real issue is that he's shameless, isn't he? I said, I'm worried about your future. You finally got promoted to deputy general. What if you lose your position again? In the last life, he always served under his uncle. Because of his bad temper and intolerance for injustice, he fought often and never got promoted until I died. He was talented, but his bad temper ruined him. Song Shiqing looked sheepish and muttered, if he messes with me again, I'll still deal with him. You? Forget it. You should head back to the barracks early, work hard to earn merits, and aim to become the youngest general of Zhou. I said, you want me to be a general? His eyes brightened. Whether I want it or not is for you to decide. Besides, my father is in the cabinet now, my eldest brother got promoted, my uncle is deputy general, and you're a deputy commander. Our family's got both civil and military power now. The Su family was no longer just a mere third-rank official household, as others used to say. If you climb higher, our family will truly be at its peak, a prestigious and powerful clan. Song Shiqing stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. All right, I'll take you to soaring success. I'm serious here, so you better be serious too. I am serious, he said carelessly. Song Shiqing was found begging in the Northwest when he was 7 and was adopted by my uncle. At that time, he claimed to have amnesia, remembering nothing before age 7. My uncle thought he was clever and well-behaved, so he named him and raised him as his own son. Later, we found out his good behavior was all an act. Getting into trouble was his true nature. I have something for you, he said, digging into his bundle and tossing me a golden plaque. A gift from me. It was a deputy commander's golden plaque, specially made for him by the emperor. Nobody else had one. I don't want it. It's too valuable. You should keep it yourself. Without you, I wouldn't have been promoted to deputy commander. You deserve half of this. Song Shiqing picked up his bundle and waved at me. I'm going back now. Don't miss me too much. I chased after him. No more fighting and causing trouble, got it? He called back. You don't understand me. I never caused trouble. Only others deserve to be dealt with. Song Shiqing's antics helped me vent, but Xiaozhi made me sick. What was he thinking, wanting to have both the bowl and the pot? That's just wishful thinking. After going home, I heard Su Rong had fallen ill. Concubine Yao asked my mother to summon a doctor, but my mother refused. I helped them anyway. When the doctor arrived at the mansion, a shy, downcast servant followed behind. It was Xiaozhi. I stood under the corridor and watched Xiaozhi enter Su Rong's room. Near the hour of high, Xiaozhi still hadn't left. I sent someone to tell my father. Hearing this almost made him faint. He gathered men and went straight to Su Rong's courtyard. My mother coldly mocked my father. Is this the innocent child you said? The good daughter you've been feeling guilty about all along? My father slapped Su Rong and immediately summoned the Marquis of Boyang. Marquis, either you send a matchmaker tomorrow to propose, or I, Su, will lose all shame and demand an audience with the emperor myself. Please don't be angry, Elder Su. The two children are immature, but as their elders, we will act with propriety. Rest assured, tomorrow morning, I will send a matchmaker to propose. The Marquis of Boyang said with a grim face. Now, even if the Marquis's wife disliked Su Rong, it was useless. The next day, both families quickly set the wedding date for early September. The wet nurse spat in disdain. Mother and daughter are shameless, born knowing how to crawl into men's beds. They think this will get them a good marriage and a good life? Bah. That Marquis's wife is arrogant and overbearing. Let's see what kind of life Su Rong will have marrying into that. The wet nurse knew the household well. She said Su Rong would be tormented by the Marquis's wife once she married in. Su Rong and concubine Yao began preparing for the wedding. My mother didn't care at all. She just handed over silver and let those two handle it. By my father's temperament, if Su Rong hadn't done such a foolish thing, he would have still cared about the marriage. As my mother said, although my father hated concubine Yao, he always felt Su Rong was innocent and harbored guilt for her. Now, after this incident, he hated them both even more than my mother did. Forget caring. He wanted them both dead. The house was cold and quiet. Su Rong wasn't very happy either. When I saw her 7 or 8 days later, she was much thinner and looked unwell. But when she saw me, she forced a bright smile and greeted me cheerfully, talking about her and Xiaoji, calling him Brother Ji at every turn. Shou, I interrupted her, lowering my voice. Keep calling him that, and the whole capital will know how close you two are. Su Rong's face instantly turned pale. I gave her a sharp look and walked away with a flick of my sleeve. What are you so proud of? Su Rong followed behind me, furious. You were born lucky, with everyone doting on you since you were little. I have nothing. If I don't fight for myself, who in this family will think of me? I turned back to her and sneered. Fight for yourself? Congratulations. Because of your fighting, your fate is no longer yours to control. Xiaoji never came back to my home, and I never saw him again. The rumors about my family in the capital were soon forgotten as news of the Southern Flood disaster spread. The princess consort of Rue organized the women of the capital to donate money and supplies for disaster relief. My mother was very enthusiastic and went to help every day. One day, when I went to Rue Wangfu, the prince of Rue's residence, I met the princess of Nanping. In my previous life, after I died, I had met her. She once had a relationship with my eldest brother, but for some unknown reason, they never got to the point of discussing marriage. But I knew neither my brother nor she had forgotten each other. The princess of Nanping was tall, outspoken, and straightforward. Though she was delicately beautiful, her dressing and behavior were anything but delicate. We hit it off immediately and agreed to go out for a meal that day. At the restaurant, Nanping saw a group bullying a young singing girl. Seeing injustice, she jumped in and fought with them. The two of us fought against 7 men. The restaurant owner reported it to the authorities. When my brother came to the government office to pay my bail, Nanping was still holding a man by his top knot, beating him. My brother stood there, his expression priceless. When Nanping turned around, a line of blood ran down her nose, and she looked very disheveled. That was their first meeting in this life. I laughed until my stomach hurt. My brother said the princess of Nanping was very much like Song Shiqing. I felt the same way. She and Song Shiqing both liked to fight for justice, and they also looked somewhat alike. Maybe it's true that people with the same character look alike, appearance reflecting the heart. Nanping often came to my house to visit me, and I would go to Rue Wangfu to see her. I never met the Prince of Rue, but the princess consort of Rue was very stern, probably because she was the daughter of General Gua, a military family. Her manner was that of a general, strict, commanding respect without anger or smiles. The princess consort married late, only at 23 to the Prince of Rue. My mother said the prince had a previous wife who died, and the current princess consort was his second wife. When she arrived, there was already a 4-year-old son from the first wife. The princess consort treated that child very well and had once said she would have no more children. But somehow, within 2 years, the boy died, and the next year, the princess consort gave birth to the princess of Nanping. Since then, the prince and princess consort lived separately, different courtyards, different dining tables. Although they were not officially separated, they were strangers in all but name. I found this quite sad. Suddenly, someone nudged my shoulder. It was the princess of Nanping asking, "Do you want to visit Jiangnan?" I was eating melon seeds and choked on her words, coughing for a long while before looking at her. "Do you know my brother is assigned to Jiangnan and plan to follow him there?" Nanping rolled her eyes at me. "Some things can only be understood, not explained. If you say that, I'll have to hit you." I laughed loudly, hugging her. "Good sister-in-law, please don't hit me. I'm delicate and tender, not made for rough treatment." Nanping pinched my cheek. "I think you're rough and tough." After our teasing, we decided together to go to Jiangnan. Having already died once, this time I wanted to live well, to do what I was too afraid to do in my previous life. If anything went wrong, I had the princess of Nanping and my brother to rely on. We arrived in Jiangnan 20 days later. Nanping and I feared we'd see a land full of starving corpses and devastation, but to our surprise, the situation was much better than expected. Suddenly, I saw a man covered in mud leading an ox to plow the field. I pointed and was stunned into silence for a long time. Song Shiqing. Song Shiqing looked over at us. When he recognized us, a huge smile spread across his face. His dark, sunburned face lit up, his teeth gleaming like porcelain, as if brightening the dull surroundings. "Jiao Jiao." He waved at me and ran barefoot through the mud. I realized Song Shiqing had arrived here half a month before us. He hadn't come alone. He brought a troop of 300 elite soldiers he had trained. They were skilled not only in battle but also in building houses, repairing city walls and dams, forging weapons, almost all kinds of craftsmanship. The emperor had specially issued orders for him to bring his troops. After arriving, in just half a month, he had nearly completed the disaster relief work. That's why things looked so peaceful now. I was amazed and could hardly believe what I saw and heard. Song Shiqing was truly capable. "My goodness, you're amazing." My brother praised him for a long time, then suddenly remembered something and introduced. "This is the princess of Nanping." Song Shiqing paused, looked at Nanping, and his smile faded a bit. "So you are Song Shiqing," Nanping said with a subtle glance at me, then gave him a slight nod. "Pleasure to meet you." Song Shiqing's gaze swept across Nanping's face. He nodded slightly, and then left with my brother. The two of them crouched on the ridge, whispering plans. "You have bad judgment," Nanping told me. "Song Shiqing isn't the reckless troublemaker you said he was, a frivolous playboy." I felt embarrassed and smiled awkwardly. "Why, yeah, maybe." Feeling awkward, I pulled Nanping along. "Let's get settled in first, then we can look around and see if there's anything we can help with." Like Song Shiqing, we all stayed in the county government compound, but since there were many of us, the 4 of us squeezed into one courtyard with no separation by gender. After dinner, I was washing clothes by the well when Song Shiqing sat down opposite me. "Didn't bring a maid with you?" "I'm not here for a trip." "It'd be weird to bring a maid, right?" I wrung out the water from my sleeves and scratched a mosquito bite on my leg. The mosquitoes here were terrible. Within minutes, I'd been bitten 7 or 8 times. Song Shiqing looked at my legs and then waved his hand. "Go back inside. I'll help you wash." "Yeah, right." I pushed him away. "Bet you'd mess up my clothes." Song Shiqing didn't insist. He went back inside, got a palm leaf fan, and squatted beside me to fan me. I looked at the fan in his hand and laughed. "You look like an old man resting under a tree." Song Shiqing fanned harder. "Have you ever seen such a graceful old man?" I sneered. "You're so dark from the sun. Where's the grace?" Song Shiqing snorted. "Boss." Some of Song Shiqing's men passed by, giving me suggestive looks. "Is this your wife?" I was about to explain when Song Shirching's face turned fierce. Stop talking nonsense, Scram. Boss is angry, hot. The men laughed slyly and jostled each other, shouting at me. Hello, sister-in-law. I blushed furiously. Song Shirching tossed a pebble at them. Go away. They ran off, laughing loudly. Song Shirching kept fanning, looking around with a constant smile on his face. I frowned at him. Song Shirching, your fan hit my face. I have eyes in the back of my head. No way I'd hit your face. I don't have eyes in the back of my head. Hit my face twice. I said. There was a lot to do for disaster relief. My brother was busy coordinating troops and distributing grain, barely seen. Nanping disguised herself as a clerk, helping keep the accounts every day. I originally wanted to follow my brother, but Nanping gave me a look that said if I came along, she'd beat me up. So I had no choice but to help Song Shirching instead. Song Shirching had been helping the villagers repair collapsed houses. Some were completely destroyed and needed to be rebuilt from scratch. His 300 men were divided into teams, working fast and well. The local people admired and liked them a lot. Since I had little else to do, I helped as a mason, carrying dirt and lime. Sometimes, when the big kitchen needed help, I washed and picked vegetables. Jiao Jiao, Song Shirching said one evening, riding his horse from elsewhere. Time to go home. I was sitting on the horse, Song Shirching leading it by the reins. The sunset cast golden light all around, making even the roadside grass seem vibrant. He rolled up his pants and his cloth shoes, wet and loose, slapped the ground with every step, pat, 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 like a steady, calming rhythm. Song Shirching held the riding whip in his right hand and the reins in his left, greeting familiar faces along the way. Greetings, Lord Song, madam. At moments like this, Song Shirching would wave and respond in the local dialect, which I didn't understand, but the people would smile even more flirtatiously after hearing him. I suspected he was teasing me, so I pressed him for an explanation. He dodged the question and asked, "Want to eat fish?" I frowned. The water's so muddy. Is there even any fish? Song Shirching looked back at me, his sun-darkened youthful face bright and bold. Haven't you heard the saying about fishing in muddy waters? If you don't catch any fish, I'll laugh at you for a year. Laugh at me for a lifetime, that's fine. He grabbed a slender bamboo stick and stood in the murky water, eyes closed, listening carefully. I couldn't hear anything but the wind and cicadas. After a moment, he suddenly moved, quick and precise. When he lifted the fishing spear, he smiled and said, "Jiao Jiao, do you want it grilled or roasted?" He really caught a fish. He knew how to roast it, seasoning it with coarse salt. By the time I finished washing up, the aroma was already filling the air. I sat among 4 or 5 burning moxa stalks. Though the smoke made it hard to keep my eyes open, no mosquitoes dared bite me. Try the master's cooking. He handed me the fish. Don't be stingy. Praise it loudly. I tasted it. It really was good. I ate about half and passed the rest back. Really good. Lord Song can do everything. Amazing. Of course. There's nothing in this world I can't do, Song Shirching boasted. I rolled my eyes. Can you build houses? Forge iron? Write documents? I think you're best at bragging. He sat beside me, fanning me with a leaf fan, frowning. A little girl who's never seen the world can't recognize talent. It's not my fault. I laughed out loud. Later, I learned Song Shirching really did know how to do everything. Where did you learn all this? I stood by the blacksmith's furnace, watching him hammer out a kitchen knife with awe. He glanced at me. You need to learn that? I was speechless. Yes, you're the smartest. Luckily, there aren't many like you, or all the masters taking apprentices would be out of work. Song Shirching smiled proudly. We start sewing tomorrow. Will you go? He asked. Yes. I'd go anywhere I could help. If I could only cause trouble, I'd skip it. Boss. His subordinate rushed over. Lord Su had a problem. Luoshan County complains they got fewer seeds than Longfeng and want Lord Su to compensate. Song Shirching tossed the knife into a basin, water splashing crisply. Go check it out. At the border between Luoshan and Longping counties, people were fighting. A dark crowd wielded hoes, bamboo poles, and anything else they could grab. The scene was chaos. Horses neighing, people shouting. Local constables and militia were present, but powerless to stop it. This is rebellion. Song Shirqing dismounted and charged into the crowd, cracking his whip left and right. Soon he separated the fighting sides. Sitting tall on his horse, his expression cold and sharp, he scanned everyone and scolded, "You just barely escaped death and filled your bellies, yet you complain life's too easy." His words silenced the crowd. I later learned on the very first day of his arrival, he had already dealt with troublemakers harshly. Now, the locals both feared and respected him. "Madam," his subordinate Changfeng stood beside me grinning. "Our boss is something else. In the camp, his word carries more weight than the general's." I was surprised. "He picks fights every day, his word matters?" "He only fights for others' good. The boss is loyal. He never shirks when his brothers are in trouble," Changfeng said with a smile. "No matter the difficulty, if you find the boss, it'll get solved." Suddenly, I realized I barely knew Song Shirqing. I'd always thought he was a reckless troublemaker, sent to the army by my uncle to be disciplined, who never advanced in rank due to his meddling and fighting. But now I saw his methods actually worked well in the army. He was respected and influential. Also, after coming here, he quickly bonded with the locals, men, women, young and old, treating each differently. Song Shirqing wasn't a reckless fool. He was clever and calculating, just hiding it behind a carefree facade, something my naive self had never seen clearly. Watching him swiftly resolve disputes and hold the main offenders accountable, I felt he was both familiar and strange to me. Song Shirqing dealt out punishments to the leaders of the two quarreling groups, assigning each person their due penalty. He wasn't afraid of trouble. He carefully verified each case, and no one received the same punishment. He never tried to smooth things over or compromise. Those punished accepted their fate without complaint and obediently followed his orders. By the time he finished, it was already dark. He helped me onto the horse and reverted back to his usual playful smile, even tossing me a fruit.
"Here, eat this.
It's really sweet."
"I don't believe you," I said.
The fruit looked sour at first glance. He gave me a take-it-or-leave-it expression. I still took a bite, but it was so sour it felt like my teeth would fall out. Furious, I threw the sour fruit at him. He laughed heartily, caught it, and munched as he walked. I ate it and it wasn't sour, so I'm not lying to you. I hated him so much, I could almost bite my own teeth. We stayed in Jiangnan until the end of September before returning to the capital, with Song Shirqing traveling with us. On the way back, it was obvious that my brother and Princess Nanping were no longer just acquaintances. I quietly asked my brother if he was going to marry Nanping and make her my sister-in-law. He blushed and shot me a sharp look but didn't deny it. "Well then, I'll just wait for the wedding feast," I said. But I was curious. They were both strong-willed and determined people. Why hadn't they ended up together in the previous life? Could it have been because the Prince Rue and his wife disapproved? But my brother's character, appearance, and official rank were all top-notch. Why would the prince and his wife oppose him? On the day we returned to the capital, the four of us went together to pay respects to the emperor. The emperor saw Song Shirqing again and smiled even more warmly, personally helping him up. Minister Song, though young, is steady and capable. He is a blessing to me and the great Zhou. Song Shirqing bowed and replied, "It is my fortune to relieve your majesty's worries and serve the people." The emperor laughed heartily, then turned to help my brother up. Then, greeting my father who had just entered, said, "Minister Su, you are truly remarkable. Your son is talented and capable, and your nephew is also a prodigy. The empire's future is assured with talents like yours." My father laughed modestly in response. The emperor rewarded all four of us, promoting my brother and Song Shirqing to higher ranks. Since Nanping and I could not hold official posts, we were each given a large sum of gold, silver, and jewels. "Hold a banquet. Tonight, I shall drink with several of my favored ministers," the emperor declared. We followed him to a side hall where many important ministers had gathered. Prince Rue and his consort also arrived soon after. Namping took me to pay respects to the prince and his wife. It was my first time meeting Prince Rue, and when I saw his face clearly, I was momentarily stunned. Prince Rue was lean and thin. Though older, his features remained refined and dignified. For some reason, I felt a strange sense of familiarity when looking at him. I look like my father, the king. Namping noticed my hesitation. Yes, indeed, I said, still caught off guard. Suddenly, a thought struck me, and I quickly looked at Song Shiqing. He had been facing this side, but now, for some unknown reason, had turned his back to us. I couldn't see his face clearly now. I felt that Song Shiqing and Prince Rue also looked alike. As the drinking progressed, the emperor became more talkative and introduced the ministers he favored to everyone. Song Shiqing didn't seem very interested, but didn't dare decline the emperor's goodwill, so he stayed. I was sipping tea with my head down when suddenly, I heard a cup smash at the next table. I looked up and saw that Prince Rue was left holding only the saucer. His teacup had shattered at his feet. The spilled tea wet his clothes, and he stood there staring blankly at Song Shiqing. Everyone looked at Prince Rue strangely. "What's wrong?" the emperor asked the prince. Prince Rue regained his composure, lowered his gaze from Song Shiqing, stood up, and bowed apologetically. My hand slipped, and I broke the cup. "I beg your majesty's pardon." The emperor, in a good mood, didn't reprimand him but chuckled. "No cup is destiny. Drink more wine tonight." Prince Rue nodded in agreement. I quietly stared over there, suddenly struck by an incredible suspicion. After the banquet ended and we left, Song Shiqing was nowhere to be found. I thought he might come back later, but he still hadn't returned the next day. My brother sent people to look for him. Could he have gone straight back to the northwest? My mother wondered. "I'll write to uncle and confirm if he's returned," my brother said, and immediately began composing a letter. I absent-mindedly peeled an orange. A maid came in to answer my mother. "Madam, concubine Yao went out again." In early September, Su Rong had already married into the Boyang Marquis residence, so I hadn't seen her this time and hadn't asked about her situation. But now hearing the maid speak vaguely about concubine Yao, I couldn't help but ask, did she say where she went? She secretly visited Su Rong's dowry house. The mother and daughter met privately. "Just ignore them," my mother said while sipping tea. "I already told your father, if she causes trouble again, I'll have her sold off. I don't care whose concubine or whose mother she is." Before my mother finished speaking, Changfeng suddenly stumbled in, brought by someone. "Bad news. Our leader attempted to assassinate Prince Rue and has been imprisoned." We all stared in shock, speechless. Song Shiqing was not detained in the Court of Judicial Review, Dali Si, but was held under guard at the Imperial Clan Office, Zhongrenfu. My brother was puzzled. Why is he held at the Imperial Clan Office? Only members of the royal family or close relatives could be detained there. Ordinary officials or commoners had no such privilege. "I want to see him first," I said. We met Song Shiqing. He was still wearing the same dark blue robe from yesterday, the collar and cuffs stained with blood. He leaned back in the chair, staring blankly at the ceiling, his face showing exhaustion as if he hadn't slept all night. My mother called out to him in concern, and only then did Song Shiqing snap out of it and look at us, pulling a wry smile. "What happened exactly? How did it come to you attempting to assassinate the Prince of Rue?" my father asked. "I didn't assassinate him. He stabbed himself, saying he wanted to give me his life," Song Shiqing replied with a self-mocking smile, his tone still casual. We exchanged confused looks, even more bewildered. "Shiqing, explain clearly to your uncle and aunt. We're worried sick over here," my mother urged. Just as Song Shiqing was about to speak, someone behind him said, "Everyone, let me explain the circumstances myself." I turned around and saw the Prince of Rue, pale and being supported by attendants as he entered. Though he wore his outer robe, there was blood seeping through the fabric on his chest. "Shiqing," the prince sat down and sighed, looking at Song Shiqing. "He is my son." We were stunned. My mother staggered slightly. Your Highness, but your son was thought to have. How is Shurqing here? The prince said the moment he saw Song Shurqing, he knew he was his son because Shurqing resembled him when he was young. After he spoke, my father suddenly understood. No wonder the emperor mentioned earlier that Song Shurqing looked familiar to him. We hadn't thought of you. The prince gave a bitter smile. The story must be told from the beginning, then you'll understand, he said. He explained that he and the current princess of Rue, Madame Gua, had originally privately pledged to marry for life. But the late emperor, without consulting him, ordered him to marry another woman. He had no choice but to comply. Though their marriage wasn't loving, they respected each other as husband and wife. The following year, they had a son. That son was Song Shurqing. However, the prince confessed that he had never forgotten Madame Gua, and she never remarried. He thought they had no future and had given up, but unexpectedly, for years later, Madame Gua died of illness. Grieving, he reconsidered and 6 months later married Madame Gua again as his second wife. After Madame Gua remarried into the household, she cared deeply for Song Shurqing, saying she would no longer bear children and would raise him herself. At that time, the prince had thought, with such a wife, what more could a husband want? But when Song Shurqing was 6 years old, after attending the Lantern Festival, he never returned. The prince searched all over the capital and beyond, but found no trace. The worry caused him to fall seriously ill. He kept sending people to look, but there was no news. Only when the Princess of Nanping was born 2 years later did he finally recover. He thought life was settling, but he occasionally learned that it was Madame Gua who arranged for Song Shurqing to attend the Lantern Festival that year. This made him suspect whether Madame Gua had deliberately abandoned Shurqing. He confronted Madame Gua, who admitted to it and said she did it to protect him by killing Song Shurqing. He couldn't bring himself to kill Madame Gua, but afterward, the couple became estranged. Though not divorced, they lived like strangers. Jingji, the prince looked at Song Shurqing. Your father never expected you to be alive. I'm sorry. Song Shurqing lifted his eyelids, glanced coldly at the prince, and mocked. You don't need to apologize to me. The one you owe an apology to is my mother. She married you for 5 years, endured you for 5 years. If she hadn't suffered, how could she have died so early? The prince's face darkened, and he said nothing in reply. Within half a year after her death, you married another woman and even sighed, saying, with such a wife, what more could a husband want? You shameless. The prince's chest heaved, and he coughed up blood. The prince was carried back to the manor. Before leaving, he said he had explained to the emperor that he had injured himself impulsively, so Song Shurqing could be released. Song Shurqing left without looking back. Our family's feelings were complicated. My mother whispered, so the boy never lost his memory. He just didn't want to mention the past. My father sighed too. My heart ached. After some thought, I brought a jug of wine to find Song Shurqing. He was leaning against the courtyard wall. When he saw me, he smiled. You even brought wine. You really care for me. If you're in the mood to joke, then I'm relieved, I said, handing him the wine and drinking with him. We remained silent. After 2 jugs were finished, he looked at me with slight drunkenness. I remember everything from childhood. When I was adopted by father, I lied and said I didn't remember. I nodded. When she entered the manor, I was still young. Everyone said she was my mother, so I called her mother. Was she pretending? Was she two-faced and cruel to you? Was she the one who abandoned you at the Lantern Festival? I asked. Song Shurqing smiled bitterly and shook his head. If that were true, I would have killed and avenged myself long ago. But it's not. He said Madame Gua really treated him well. He believed she truly meant what she said about not having more children and raising him. I still remember on New Year's Eve when I was 6, she thought I was asleep, so she sighed in my ear. She said my mother died of illness, not caused by her, but she understood it was related to her. Madame Gua said it was fate's cruel trick. She didn't want it to be like this, but she was a worldly woman living in a mundane world. So, The person who wanted to kill you at the Lantern Festival was not Madame Gua, but General Gua? I asked. Song Shiqing was sure Madame Gua didn't know. But the prince said she confessed. So she covered for your father?
I said.
Song Shiqing nodded. That old bastard Gua. I'll kill him sooner or later. Suddenly I understood why Song Shiqing had fought with General Gua in the past life. I even had another guess. The reason my brother and the princess of Nanping didn't end up together in that life was because of Song Shiqing's background. In that life, Song Shiqing fought General Gua, who was seriously injured. Not dead, but harmed. That grudge might have also been the cause of my brother and Nanping's separation. For a moment, I felt deeply moved. The next day, a distinguished guest came to our home. Nanping accompanied the Rue princess consort to visit. Excuse me, I want to have a word with him, said the princess consort, her expression still unreadable, standing tall and proud as if nothing could make her smile or bow. My mother asked Song Shiqing for permission, and only after getting it did she arrange a study room for them. We didn't hear what they talked about, but when the princess consort came out, her eyes were red. She had clearly been crying. Nanping supported her, hesitating to speak, but the princess consort seemed relieved, and looking at all of us, she finally smiled. It was the first time I'd ever seen her smile. She spoke to my brother. I know about you and Nanping. This morning, I also petitioned for an imperial decree to grant your marriage. From now on, my Nanping is entrusted to you. Princess consort, my brother wanted to say something, but felt everything was unnecessary. That very afternoon, the princess consort went to Huangjue Temple and shaved her head to become a nun. Nanping sighed sitting below Fahua Temple. My mother said that as early as the year my father was ordered to marry another, she wanted to become a nun, but she was always timid and attached to the worldly life, so she never dared. My mother also said if she had become a nun earlier, maybe my brother's mother wouldn't have died so sorrowfully, and my brother wouldn't have been left homeless and afraid to return home. Yesterday she met my brother and opened her heart to him, so now she has no attachments in this world. Nanping looked at me, eyes full of sadness. I hugged her, gently stroking her back, but didn't know how to comfort her. Why bother? Song Shiqing leaned against a tree trunk, chewing on a dry blade of grass, his expression indifferent. He said it wasn't the princess consort's fault at all. He said women suffer too much. They can never break free from the heavy burden of being women. Jiao, if you don't want to marry, then never marry. Just be yourself. I nodded firmly. I won't marry. Absolutely not. Song Shiqing looked wistful, probably thinking of his own mother. After a long silence, I sighed again. I think the path the princess consort chose must have been for something very important to her. She probably didn't regret it. That sounds quite enlightened, Song Shiqing said, patting my head. So young and already so open-minded. I thought he was quite open-minded, too. So young, carrying such heavy thoughts, pretending to be careless and casual. I imagine the countless nights he must have felt wronged and homesick for his mother. How he endured it, I dared not think. Guoreng returned to the capital and pleaded guilty, resigning from his post. He originally asked the emperor for punishment, but was spared because of his old age. So Guoreng drew a line on the ground and declared the Gua family's gate off limits, saying that until he died, he would never step outside the Gua residence again. When I heard this, Song Shiqing was making paper kites for me. He made them fly very high, and I also realized he was good at drawing. You really can do everything, I laughed. Of course, if I didn't show off, you'd think I was just bragging, he said. I looked up at the kite soaring wildly and suddenly said, what if we cut the string so it could fly even higher without any ties? I thought Song Shiqing would agree, but he knocked my head. What are you thinking? The little master worked hard on this. I glared at him. Gentlemen use words, not hands. I'm no gentleman. Also, he suddenly leaned close, staring at my face. About that day when I told you to not marry if you didn't want to, I take it back. I was stunned. You have to marry and make sure you find a steady and reliable person. He stroked his chin. as if implying he was that steady, reliable person. Song Shiqing, have you no shame?
Nope.
When have you ever seen me care about shame? He replied. I laughed and rolled my eyes, not wanting to argue. Just tell me yes or no. I'll wait 3 or 5 years if I have to. Song Shiqing suddenly became serious. If you really don't want to marry, that's fine. I'll stay single with you until we grow old. But there's one thing. He gave me a sly look. You can refuse me, but you're not allowed to marry anyone else. Threatening me? I grabbed his arm. Song, you've gotten promoted and your courage has gotten bigger. He yelped in pain. See, I pointed at the pond outside the door. If tomorrow morning the pond freezes 3 feet thick, I'll marry you. Song Shiqing was furious. You're not playing fair. It's only early October. How could there be 3 feet of ice? I huffed, tossed him the kite string, and walked away. The next morning I woke early and peeked out the window at the pond. The 2 ducks I raised were still happily swimming on the water's surface. I wrapped myself back up in bed and slept deeply. It wasn't until the afternoon when someone knocked on the door that I woke up. The maid came in, excitedly shouting, Miss, you have to get up and see this. I was dragged out, and there stood Song Shiqing by the pond, covered in mud, his wind-burned red face only revealing a row of sparkling white teeth. Su Jiao Jiao. Song Shiqing pointed at the pond. 3 feet of ice. Will you marry me? You. I ran over to look, and sure enough, a chunk of ice about the size of a jar mouth floated in the pond. It looked thick. I asked Song Shiqing, where did you get this ice? Other things later. First, answer me. No way, I squinted. Did you get summer ice from some wealthy family in the capital? There was no natural way to have such thick ice now. The only possibility was leftover ice stored by rich families for summer use. But even then, by this time, ice was rare and should have melted. No matter how he got it, that ice was incredibly hard to obtain. Su Jiao Jiao, you don't keep your word, Song Shiqing said. I don't want to marry. So what? No, you want to. If you didn't, you wouldn't have slept until afternoon. You usually get up at dawn to practice. You were waiting for my ice. Song Shiqing smiled slyly. I flushed and ignored him, going back inside. Su Jiao Jiao. Song Shiqing shouted at the door. I'm going to tell my parents and aunt. I shut the door, but heard him bouncing outside, shouting, I have a wife now. Aunt, Jiao Jiao agreed to marry me. Aunt, if you don't agree, I'll marry into your family. My mother gave him a scolding but joined in the teasing. The wet nurse said that day Song Shiqing was telling everyone he was getting married and had bought 3 sacks of wedding candies to hand out. Does he have no shame, handing out candy before even marrying? He didn't sleep all night yesterday, asking around and running all over just to get ice. He's so happy. He wants to tell everyone. I sat by the bed, watching the ice slowly melt, feeling warm inside. When I got engaged to Song Shiqing, my uncle also returned to the capital. Prince Rue invited my uncle's family to the prince's residence for tea. I heard that Prince Rue respected all of Song Shiqing's decisions. If Song Shiqing wanted to acknowledge his royal lineage, so be it. If he didn't, Prince Rue would speak to His Majesty about it himself. Song Shiqing said he would acknowledge it, but only after Prince Rue passed away. He said that as long as Prince Rue was alive, he would never kneel at his feet and give him the joy of family because Prince Rue didn't deserve it. As for my uncle's side, he already had 2 sons and didn't need Song Shiqing to carry on the family name, so he also said it was up to Song Shiqing to decide. Our wedding was set for August of the year after next. His Majesty promoted Song Shiqing to commander of the Right Army and granted him a residence. My brother and Nanfeng's wedding was set for September of next year. For a while, we were all so busy. Once one task was done, another was waiting right behind it. That day, I had gone out to check on the shop. It was already dusk when I came back. As I passed an alleyway, the old maid following me called out. I lifted the curtain and saw Xiaoji, drunk, slumped against the wall. He looked over at me, eyes dazed from the alcohol. Jiao Jiao. He staggered over, stopping beneath my window. He looked up at me, his gaze almost greedy, staring at my face. Jiao Jiao, I miss you so much. But I didn't dare come find you. I miss you terribly. Xiaoji, you're drunk. Don't talk nonsense. I regret it. He clung to the window, eyes red and brimming with tears. You probably won't believe me, but I was reborn. In my past life, after you died, I missed you every day. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. Su Rong came to my house as a maid to atone for her sins. I knew she had bad intentions, so I punished her every time. It felt like the more I tormented her, the less it hurt to miss you. I don't know what happened one day. I suddenly felt something for her. I rushed into the forest, held her in my arms, and in that moment of getting her back, I lost my mind. Later that night, I had a dream. When I woke up, I was back by the river. You were struggling in the icy water. I don't know what I was thinking. I gave up on you and went to find Su Rong. But I missed you. I missed you so much. He was rambling. If I hadn't been reborn, I probably wouldn't have understood what he was saying. Unfortunately, I understood perfectly. Xiaoji. I looked at him and said softly, the path you chose must have had someone most important to you. Just follow your heart. Don't look back, because the person you gave up on will never wait for you in the same place. And don't regret it, because that was your heart's decision. Xiaoji trembled. His wine-flushed face instantly lost all color. After a moment, or maybe after a long time, he said hoarsely, so, the moment I turned away, it was truly over for us, wasn't it?
Yes, Xiaoji.
I will never wait in place for you. And you're not worth waiting for. Xiaoji gave a bitter smile. His hands slipped from the window as he slumped and stumbled back into the alley. After walking a few steps, he mumbled, in this life, you're healthy and found the one you love. That's good, really good. Jiao Jiao, then this life was still worth it for me. Xiaoji disappeared into the alley. I thought I would see him again someday. I didn't expect that would be the last time. Not just for me, but for everyone. No one ever saw him again. On the day of my brother's wedding, I saw Su Rong. She was gaunt, and the flowered robe she wore looked like fake blossoms pinned on dead branches. We ran into each other beneath the covered walkway. Neither of us spoke. We passed each other in silence. That winter, Su Rong committed suicide. She swallowed gold. Before she died, she begged my father to release concubine Yao and gave all her dowry and the money Xiaoji had left her to concubine Yao. After Su Rong died, the Marchioness of Boyang refused to allow her into the Xiao family's ancestral tomb. Su Rong left me a letter. It had only one line. If I could do it all over again, I would still make the same choice, because that was my best choice. I burned the letter. Nanping and my brother are doing well. By the time I got married, she was already 3 months pregnant. She clutched her hands nervously at the door, looking at Song Shiqing, and said cautiously, "Brother, congratulations." Then, worried that Song Shiqing still wouldn't respond, she glanced anxiously at me. "MHM." Song Shiqing handed her a red envelope. Nanping beamed as she held the pouch. "Thank you, brother." Song Shiqing muttered, "It's for my nephew." Nanping laughed even more joyfully. The wedding ceremonies were incredibly tedious. By the end of the day, I was completely exhausted. I asked Song Shiqing to help me take off the phoenix coronet and massage my shoulders. He laughed and said, "My lady, how's the pressure? Is it to your satisfaction?" "Not bad. Lord Song still has room for improvement." He leaned in close and whispered in my ear, "How about having something to eat first? Then I'll give you a proper massage." My face flushed. I turned to glare at him. "Song Shiqing, have you no shame?" He looked puzzled. "What did I say that was shameless? What were you thinking, blushing like that?" I pinched him. He burst out laughing. My wife's pinch really hurts." The end.